Since President Trump took office 3 months ago, we've been looking at the meetings in and outside the Oval Office that are helping to shape whatever his Middle East policy will become. The latest of those happening now, James Mattis on a Mideast tour today in Egypt. And already this administration has made a pretty sharp break from former President Obama, handing out some heavy praise for the Egyptian president.
We agree on so many things. I just want to let everybody know, in case there was any doubt, that we are very much behind President el-Sisi. He's done a fantastic job in a very difficult situation. We are very much behind Egypt and the people of Egypt. We'll fight terrorism and other things, and we're going to be friends for a long, long period of time.
Before his appointment as defense minister, General Mattis seemed to echo that stance you just heard from President Trump. Here's a little bit of that.
I believe that what they have done is they brought in competent people, not just pious people, and these competent people can get some financial investment going in Egypt. They can, just by seeing the inclusiveness of this, they'll stop this divisiveness the Muslim Brotherhood was fomenting.
Here with me, former U.S. Ambassador to Israel Dan Shapiro, still with us, and joining the conversation, our senior defense correspondent, Shai Ben-ari. Shai, I want to begin with you. So we've just heard Mattis really echoing Trump on the same page, but they're by no means usually on the same page.
Right, indeed. Mattis is someone who appears to value the Sisi regime very much, and that is also true, I would say, of President Trump. This is something of a departure from the Obama administration's policy. Of course, Obama never met with Sisi himself, and his rise to power wasn't exactly welcomed by the administration either. Some saw it as a coup or something that resembled that. When it comes to Mattis, however, this is a very interesting figure, and he is someone who has shown he is not afraid of being an outspoken figure within this administration. For example, for his deputy, Mattis actually wanted a U.S. diplomat called Ann Patterson. Her name is Ann Patterson. This met with resistance from both the White House and Congress. It did not go through. Ann Patterson is a former Assistant Secretary of State and a former U.S. Ambassador to Egypt under the Obama administration. During her time as ambassador, she engaged with the Morsi regime, with the Muslim Brotherhood regime, received a lot of criticism for that. So Mattis has shown himself to be able to incorporate people from different worldviews, and I think that makes him a major asset for this administration.
Dan, let's go back for a moment to the Obama administration. As Shai just alluded to, we're talking about a pretty radical shift from what it looks like on the face of it between Obama and Trump here. Obama sort of turning a cold shoulder to the Egyptian president. Take us into a little bit what that relationship was like behind the scenes and how much cooperation there actually was.
I wouldn't exaggerate the notion of the cold shoulder. It is true that there were concerns expressed by the Obama administration for human rights practices and less than democratic governance in Egypt, as we've expressed about many countries around the world. At the same time, the vast majority of U.S. assistance continued to Egypt, especially that military assistance that helped it conduct its counterterrorism operations, particularly in Sinai against ISIS. And the U.S. was very supportive of Egyptian-Israeli coordination against those common threats emanating from Sinai and from the Gaza Strip, where Hamas and ISIS and other Salafist organizations have taken hold. So it is true that there's a warming in what's been expressed by President Trump, and I imagine what will be expressed by Secretary Mattis in Cairo. But I don't think it's actually a radical departure from previous U.S. policy.
What was the sort of evolution of policy from the very beginning when el-Sisi rose to power and that sort of attitude all the way through to the end? Was there any sort of shift in the understanding of what was going on in Egypt and maybe how it should be handled or treated by the American administration?
Well, you even have to go back a little before that because following the fall of Mubarak and then a somewhat chaotic and extended transition, there was a democratic election in Egypt. By all accounts, it was a free and fair election and brought to power a Muslim Brotherhood government under President Morsi. Right. That wasn't something the United States chose or supported or backed. It was just a fact that that was what the Egyptian people chose in a free and fair election. Subsequently, President Morsi shifted his form of governance to a far, far less democratic form, and then Defense Minister el-Sisi conducted the operation to depose him. Some called it a coup. It did not pass the legal standard necessary for a coup under the United States law, which allowed us to continue to conduct assistance while still urging the new government, the Sisi government, which was important because it was doing regional leadership, like upholding the treaty with Israel. It was fighting terrorism, but tried to make sure it was consistent with U.S. laws that do take into account human rights practices.
So the perception, though, of the Muslim Brotherhood may have changed a little bit in that case, because Morsi was always a part of the Muslim Brotherhood.
Morsi was always a part of the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood is a part of Egyptian society. It's definitely an extreme organization, but when it conducted itself according to democratic principles and when it participated in free and fair elections that were monitored, one couldn't exactly substitute our judgment for the judgment of the Egyptian people.
Shai, I just want to go to you briefly on Israel. Mattis is expected to arrive here tomorrow, and on that, he has been radically different from what we've heard so far from the administration, certainly from the ambassador now, David Friedman.
Right. We mentioned he is someone who's not afraid to be outspoken, and that includes Israel, I would say. We remember his comments during the confirmation hearing when asked about his thoughts on moving the embassy to Jerusalem. He said the capital I go to is Tel Aviv. That caused, of course, a furor here in Israel for obvious reasons. As a military officer, he would naturally be meeting with his counterparts in Tel Aviv at Army headquarters. He will be there this Friday as well, but he will then continue to Jerusalem. It's also interesting to note another comment he made back in 2013. He said, "I pay a military price every day as commander of CENTCOM because Americans were seen as biased in support of Israel, and that moderates all the moderate Arabs," I think a reference to Egypt, among others.
Very briefly, because we have very little time, quick response to that, how you think that might change the game here.
I think Secretary Mattis can actually provide a very useful reality check for Israelis who harbor, I think, a positive ambition to open up a regional process in which Sunni Arab states participate in trying to help shape the environment for Israelis and Palestinians to begin peace talks and to actually begin to normalize. He will be able to explain, because he knows them so well since his days at CENTCOM, what the limitations and what the political realities are in the moderate Sunni Arab world that Israel is going to have to take into account in order to get them to the table.
Gentlemen, thanks very much for now. We'll be